Okay, less than a week away from free agency. It is Tuesday afternoon on the Pats Interference Podcast, part of the gesticulative and Gen Z friendly CLNS Media Network. I am all gossiped out. I've had enough buzz and rumblings, and I will get back to the reporting I did last week at the Combine, but I'm really ready for some cold, hard football talk. So I was thinking about the coldest, hardest people in my life. And Aaron Schatz was number one with a bullet on my list.
Thanks.
Said half seriously. He's got the coldest takes. That was like your thing, right? Or a part of your...
Yeah, no, I'm not really a hot take guy. So, slowly considered, slowly barbecued takes, basically.
I love it. Otherwise known as godfather of analytics, you know him from Football Outsiders, ESPN, and of course now FTN Fantasy, as well as a Patriots fan, which, Aaron, this was part of the appeal of asking you to come on today, is we do wish lists, which are wish lists for free agency for the Patriots, but also within a budget, because you understand, as I do, they're not going to spend the way that they did last year. And as I was just telling you off the air, like, okay, A, this is not a prediction pod, but B, this is kind of harder than I thought, even as the guy who set the parameters himself.
Yeah. Part of the fun of free agency is there's so many guys out there, right? Especially this year, the draft is not that exciting. Mm-hmm. And so the fun is going to be in free agency. And there's lots of guys out there, in particular at a couple of positions that the Patriots need. So it's hard to narrow down. I just want this guy, because there's a lot of guys that would serve different role, different strengths and weaknesses in the same role. There's a lot of ways they could go with this.
There are. And I was very jealous of Matthew Berry, who I've never met or talked to before. But he had this column of like 35 most interesting things I heard at the Combine, and the whole preamble intro was just like, this is not reporting, just stuff that I heard, but it's fun to pass on things that I hear, because X, Y, and Z from this column last year were all proven right. And here I am being like, I would love that freedom, where it's just like some people play loose and fast with their information. But look, it's this list for me is partly informed by things that I heard. Everything I reported is already out there. Did the pod with Duck Hyde. Because you hear things as well, right? In all your meetings with teams and kind of...
Yeah, a little bit. I've got to admit, I didn't come out with any... my list of free agents for the Patriots is mostly just based on my own analysis. I didn't really get any hearing about who the Patriots might be interested in. We met with some teams, but not the Patriots. So mine is based on less reporting than yours is.
Okay. Well, this exercise is basically had Elliot Wolf run into us after about 4 martinis at the Combine and said, hey, Aaron, hey, Callahan, here are the keys to free agency. Go nuts. But here are the rules. You get to sign 5 players. One is a big ticket item, meaning according to all the contract projections, courtesy of Over the Cap, which you can find on Pro Football Focus. One guy who's going to get more than $15 million per year, according to them. Again, these are not my numbers. This is not a prediction, but we get to pick one guy, big ticket item. Then you get 2 mid-level veterans, defined as $8 million per year to $14.999999 million per year. And then you get 2 bargain bin guys, which you might say, hey, this is kind of boring. But A, I think it's a little bit more realistic. And you'll remember, and I think Patriots fans listening to this podcast would know, when you hit on those bargain bin guys, they can turn into Chaisson, into Khyiris Tonga, and pretty much any team that's gone to the Super Bowl, forget winning it, points to, we got so much value out of these guys we just took a flyer on that you really need to hit on. And if you're the Patriots who want to go back to the Super Bowl, you better hit on them again.
Yes, I agree. I think back to 2001, actually, because the 2001 team was built in free agency for the most part, other than Brady turning out to be Brady. There were guys like Vrabel and Cherry and all these guys who came out of free agency that year that they built that team around that were not that expensive. So even going back that far, the Patriots have always done well in years where they take the smaller guys, but they sign a few of them and they do really well with it.
Yeah, you got Roman Pfeiffer was in that group too. I think David Patton. Yep. And look, I've been telling people and said it on this podcast now for a while. I'm at the point in my life where we can soak everything in nostalgia, and I'm the happiest guy who could be, who just had a kid, is looking back now, who can say things like, 20 years ago, I remember that team. And it's exactly 20 years or 25 years ago now from that first Super Bowl team, Super Bowl champion anyway. Okay, enough about the past. Let's start here. You get to go first. It doesn't have to be your big ticket item, but I will say I'm going to start in the bottom of the bin and then go, my last player will be my big ticket item. So you go wherever you want with this, but your first
I'll
of
do
5
the same
players.
Thing.
Okay.
I'll do the same thing. All right. My first bargain bin free agent, idea is fullback Reggie Gilliam.
I like this.
Formerly of the Buffalo Bills, projected just 1 year at $1.75 million. I think they want to use a fullback. I think that the McDaniels offense has often used a fullback in the past. Devlin, obviously, being the most recent example. Heath Evans at times. Sam Gash. Gilliam is very good. I believe he's PFF's #1 graded fullback for last year. Stop messing around with Jack Westover, who's not really, I don't think anybody really considers a quality NFL player. If you don't want Gilliam, you can get Patrick Ricard. I have a feeling that Patrick Ricard is going back to Baltimore, but both of them are available and would really improve the run blocking when you've got a fullback in the game.
Yeah, look, I think there are two groups of people who would object to anything you just said. One of which is my guy, Doug Cade, big UW Washington fan with the Jack Westover commentary. But look, that's not Jack Westover's position. And the reason Jack Westover got the fullback is because he couldn't play his natural position of tight end well enough to steal the #3 job outright. That said, I heard from someone within the team middle of the season. And one of Jack Westover's, let's say, worst games of the year being like, we really, really, really need somebody new there. I think he could be useful. It's just not going to be as your full-time fullback. The second group of people are those really in the weeds and still clinging to the undrafted free agent streak as we all try to identify the guy who's going to make the roster this year.
And of course, that's a position where it's good to find the undrafted rookie. Yeah.
Well, do you remember the name? Because he's got a good fullback-ass name.
Oh, right. Oh, the guy from last year.
Yes. He went on IR and then was forgotten.
I don't remember his name. What was his name?
Brock. And then it doesn't matter what I say for the last name, because if you're a full name named Brock, you're making it. Lampy.
Brock
Northern Illinois. And so he was there with James White, who's now a high school coach somewhere in the Midwest. And, obviously got the stamp of approval. He's 6 foot whatever, 246, this and that. I don't remember the exact injury, but anyway, he's on the shelf. He's not collecting dust. He's hoping to be back. But to me, I would still, if it's going to cost, as you said, $1.75 million, and they didn't have a projection for Ricard, who I just love as a 300-pound human being who's not a lineman, I would be happy with either of those. They didn't make my list, though. I will tell you, at the bottom of my list is a player who's a bit of a long shot, and not just because he's a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro, but also because he might, like Drew Dahlman did 2 hours ago, retire, and his name's Joel Bitonio. So this is cheating a little bit in that.
Is he in this? Would he count as this category? I would think he'd be more
according
expensive.
to PFF, he is projected, and this is, again, over the cap, has their contract projections, $4.5 million per year. And this could go up to $8 million if you're in the bargain bin category. So he's 34. That's the biggest reason, right? That he might get a number that low. He could also go back to Cleveland, where he's played, where he was also a team captain. And we know cross paths with Mike Vrabel. And since Mike Vrabel left, meaning just last year, he gave up 2 sacks in 686 pass blocking snaps, according to PFF, which made him a top 10 guard in pass protection, all of the league, all of last year. What this would do is obviously not just to add a guy with a resume that could probably get you to the semifinal round of the Hall of Fame voting one year, but it would put Jared Wilson at center where he could compete with Garrett Bradbury, and then whoever wins the job outright, you feel better than if you just handed the keys to either one of them. So to me, this accomplishes 2 things. You get a good, capable player at left guard who's a good pass protector next to Will Campbell, and you just improve the center position by way of competition. Even if Joel Bitonio is a Joel Band-Aid for the 2025 or 2026 season, fine. That can work as a contender, and if we need to move Jared Wilson back. But for that number, that price, and that locker room presence, I love this value if Mike Vrabel can just make enough calls and sweeten this deals with whatever he's got to do to say, hey, come on.
I like this. Bitonio is, I would think, it wouldn't make any sense for him to go back to Cleveland. If I were him, I would either retire or I would go ring chasing. Right? He's got enough money.
I would.
And I would want a ring. And in an ESPN article I wrote, one free agent for every team, I gave him to San Francisco, which would be a similar situation. 1 year, ring chasing, could use an improvement at guard. But I would love to have him here. He's a really good player. It's still a really good player.
Yeah. All right, number 2 out of the bargain bin. Who you got?
I asked you if I was okay to re-sign people, and you said I could
Mm-hmm.
do re-signing people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I said re-sign Thayer Munford.
Oh, okay.
1 year, 1.22 million. Or my alternative is Kendall Lamb,
Okay.
1 year, 1.3 million. He had a 72.7 PFF grade 2 years ago. And the reason why is that the league is now 10% 6 offensive lineman sets. I think the 6 offensive lineman set worked really well for the Patriots this year. I think people know they ran it one time in the Super Bowl, got like 20 yards, and then never ran it again, which nobody understands what happened there.
Yep.
Munford did a good job in the assignment. If it's not Munford, it would be good to have another veteran who can do a good job in the assignment, good pass blocker. You want to pass. You want make the other team think you're going to run, and then you pass out of the 6 lineman set. So you want a good pass blocker as the 6th lineman. I wouldn't trust that 6th lineman to some rookie. I would go out there and get somebody with experience.
Okay. I like this because I can still hold on to the dream that I had the entire playoffs, Aaron, where I was writing about the 6 lineman. I think it was before the wild card game going. This has brought back the run game. It's powered everything. And there's still one play that Josh McDaniels has in his playbook and they have not called. And it is throwing to the jumbo tight end.
Oh, yeah.
Boulder can attest and, pick another offensive lineman who was in that role. They never did it. And so if Thayer Munford comes back, obviously I can cross my fingers. I like this. I am curious, though, why you went with Thayer Munford over a guy like Khyiris Tonga, who might, I don't think this will happen, but price himself into the next level of like mid-level veterans. Was he in consideration for you here?
I think he's going to, I didn't check what his number is, but I would think he might price himself into the next level. He's somebody I would love to bring back. He was really good. Yes. Definitely. Just because I went super cheap on my 2 cheap guys doesn't mean I wouldn't want to bring Tonga back, but there are people interested in him. He's got suitors.
Yes. So there's your intel. You got stuff at the combine.
Yeah, a little bit. Not about what the Patriots want to do, but about what other people want to do about Patriots players. He's got suitors.
So Tonga I want to sit with for a second. Not just because, as I've said, to the point where, look, if I had something in the mail that says do not come within 120 yards or half a mile of this person never again, I wouldn't be all that surprised. He is someone I think his camp entered the combine expecting, can we get 3, 4, maybe 5? I think that number is plenty comfortable now. And it's partly due to the interest in how he played last year as a guy who admitted to learning how to pass rush. But also, as you mentioned, this draft is not all that great.
And especially at that position, it's not.
Exactly. Right. So for him, as a guy by now has a good locker room presence, can fit in multiple systems, and he played on the nose, he played as a 3 technique, he kicked out to 5. You trust him to do those different things and show you a little bit more of his game. I don't think he's going to get to 10. I'd be surprised if he got to 8, but he's someone that might have priced himself out, even though the Patriots were this close to re-signing him on an extension last December, and it just fell apart. Jaelan Hawkins also I've talked about before. I think he'll meet more of a depressed market, which is weird to me because I think he's a starting caliber player, but there are teams in the AFC.
That's a supply and demand thing. There is a huge supply of safeties this year in free agency.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you brought up someone to re-sign because I didn't have anyone. This wish list is all outside players, so we get to do a little bit of both here. One of my outside players, my second bargain bin free agent, is a receiver. And I'm curious because some of his underlying stuff is better than the traditional box score. Can you guess who this receiver might be? And granted, it's not a good class.
There's so many guys out there. The one guy I have in mind is going to be a higher amount. So who would be the low guy?
Jalen Nailor.
Yeah. From the Vikings. Yes.
Yeah. So their number 3 receiver who played about half of his snaps in the slot and half of it outside, which anyone who follows the McDaniels system goes, okay, we can work with this because that's might be what he ends up doing. He's 27. He's 5'11", 199 pounds. As I do the Mel Kiper format of free agency. Let me tell you about his 40 next. He had 29 catches for 444 yards last year, mostly because, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are just vacuum sucking all of the targets to the outside. But when you do the math on those catches and those yards, it's more than 15 yards per catch, which was 10th in the league. He also had 4 touchdowns. So when you do the math of, okay, you don't have a player as strong or with the gravity as strong of a Justin Jefferson taking targets away. And this is a little bit more democratic distribution of those targets with a much, much better quarterback than JJ McCarthy. There might be something here. And the numbers that you would then use to make that case for Jalen Nailor, and certainly if his agent is listening, clip it right here. His yards per catch over expectation per next gen stats was 1.4 yards extra than he should have gotten based on the location of the defenders, where he is, the route, etc. Puka Nacua and Ja'Marr Chase are at 1.3 yards over expectation. So we all know that on the street of receivers, and Ja'Marr Chase and Puka Nacua are way up high on the hill behind the end of the cul-de-sac. Jalen Nailor is like right on the corner on the opposite end on the main street where it's noisy. He's got a tiny driveway, and it might even be a duplex. Okay, so he's not in the mansion side. But there's something to say that he might be saving up to make a leap a little further down the road. And I like betting on those guys who have the underlying numbers and the lesser opportunity to make a leap with more opportunity. And the last number I'll give you is this. Mike Vrabel loves contested catches, right?
Yes, he's a contested catch guy. A Nailor is, absolutely.
So this is a teeny tiny sample. But over the last 2 years, according to PFF, he has caught 12 of 17 balls in contested catch situations, which is an exceptionally high number for what was widely considered kind of a 50-50 proposition. That's better than 66% for him bringing those in. I don't expect all of that to carry over to wherever his next stop is, but for a guy who's projected to make $3.5 million per year, and let's just bump it up to 5, 6, the supply and demand, as you mentioned, there are not many good receivers out there. More than happy to take a flyer on him.
Yes, I think this is a good one. This would be definitely a good addition. Reminds me a little bit of Kendrick Bourne when he the same level he was at when they brought him over from the 49ers. You didn't expect much from him. You got a lot out of him. Always did really well in ESPN's receiver tracker ratings. So, yeah, I like Nailor. That's a good one.
Do you have time for a quick Kendrick Bourne aside?
Hit me.
So I got to tell him about yards over expectation when I first met him, maybe like 4 years ago. We're coming out of COVID, and you get some of those PR emails that beat reporters get. Oh, this player's doing X, or you can talk to so-and-so, and here's a book, promote this and that. And because we were coming out of COVID, and this event was outside, I was at a golf course. It was 2021. He had just signed. I was like, sure, I'll drive an hour to Plymouth, and he's doing like big brothers, big sister stuff. So I was trying to tell him, like, hey, I was hoping that you would sign here, and here's the yards over expectation. I've never seen a man's eyes gloss over more than in that one moment in the clubhouse of this golf course. And like, we had a good relationship while he was here. But the point was like, at some point, the box score stuff is just enough. But in the meantime, I'll be pulling all of the next gen numbers to try to find the next guy, because Kendrick had a career year in his first season here, right? 800 yards, and his yards over expectation because of the yak and because of the system and also his play strength. We're better. He was in the same range. Again, not Ja'Marr Chase and Puka Nacua, but better than expected, and it paid off for the Patriots. Okay. Mid-level veterans. So this is $8 million to 14.9. They might exceed. They might go below. But for now, we're trusting the folks at Over the Cap. We have not talked about
I realize they went slightly
an edge rusher just yet. Oh, okay. All right. Whatever. That's fine. Your guess. I can't
because I went edge rushing.
You're forgetting.
I went edge rushing.
Yep.
Okay. Resign Clavon Chaisson.
Oh, okay.
Now he's listed at 3 years, $15 million per. Obviously, a lot more than he was making last year. I don't know if he's going to quite get to that level. If you want to go cheaper, I have an alternative, which is Arnold Ebiketie.
It's on my list.
Ex of Atlanta. But they're going to need edge, and they either need to bring Chaisson back or they need someone else. And I'm not a huge fan of the idea of going out and getting a 1-year rental with a guy who's ring chasing like a Khalil Mack or a Joey Bosa. I prefer the reporting that Vrabel is not seeing this team as one player away, but as still being in the building process towards a champion. And so I like the idea of guys who are going to be 2-3 years rather than just the 1-year veteran like a Mac. So both Chaisson and Ebiketie would sort of qualify there.
So are these your two guys?
No, it would be one or the other.
One or the other? Okay. Chaisson at 15, I would pass. And I think the Patriots would too.
Now, I don't think he's going to reach that, though.
I don't either.
That
I heard
a little
10 to
high.
12. sometimes, and you hear this from teams, is that it only takes one, right, to kind
Yeah.
of blow away the market. And his total pressure numbers were good. His per snap efficiency was good. The run defense is the question. And it's just the mere fact of I think he's listed at 250. I would be surprised, except after a Thanksgiving meal, if Gilliam Chaisson ever really tips scales at 250. But the point is, it doesn't match, or that really does match what you see with his run defense. And that's kind of the issue. Do you trust his impact on high leverage situations and third downs to be that good and that consistent that it makes up for the fact you just can't play him on early downs against certain teams? I don't know. But if they do bring him back, I would not be surprised. It's just that number would surprise me. Let's talk about Ebiketie, though, because he's on my list. For people who don't know or are trying to refamiliarize themselves, he's a little bit smaller. He's 6'2", 250. So again, just kind of like the Chaisson, how are things? His run defense is graded out better. He's a former top 40 pick. He's quick. He's explosive in terms of broad jump and your verticals, and you see it on the tape. Good hands. But he was behind two top rookies last year. So his defensive snaps were down to 35% in Atlanta, where he won a high rate of his pass rushes, 16.8%, which was a top 20 number among edge defenders who played regularly last year. Still, he's only had 2 seasons with 6 sacks. It was not last year when he had 2, though he did have 3 pressures when they came up to New England and almost eked that game out somehow in the second half. So I look at him, and you mentioned Chaisson. I'm like, why get K'Lavon Chaisson after the makeover, right? Why not buy low on someone who you know is about to kind of revamp themselves, take a flyer? It won't be a 1 for 5 like Chaisson was last year, but if this is 2 for, he's listed for $8 million per year, 16, 2 for 18, 3 for 24, 3 for, I don't know, 30, and the last year's nothing. This is the kind of guy I would want to bank on. Young, untapped talent that probably does better with a guy like Mike Smith coaching him in New England.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would rather have Ebiketie for 8 years per than Chaisson for 15 per. I looked at PFF's projected salaries, and I looked at Chaisson compared to other players, and I thought, I'm not sure why he's listed at 15 per. Yeah. All these comparable players are less than that. I don't think he's going to get 15 per. I think he's going to get 12.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. That's real intel. Okay. So yeah, look, I don't have too much more to add on him. This would have to be kind of, I don't want to say the side dish because that's dismissive of good Arnold, but you want to pair him with somebody else, right? If you sign a free agency, and it could be Draymond Jones, it could be a bigger piece, and maybe we get to here a little bit later. I'm with you. It shouldn't be a Khalil Mack.
Draymond's interesting because he plays inside sometimes.
Yes,
and I don't know if you would want that. Or if you don't, it sort of depends on what might happen with Barmore. Do you want a guy who can move inside sometimes, or is that sort of a wasted talent? I don't know.
Well, they do move Milton Williams around more than I would expect. It's not to say you should do that on a full-time basis, but their interest goes back to the trade deadline last year. Talks never were that serious, but I do expect them to be in the ballpark here. My point is, I want him as part of a combo platter of edge rushers, not just the main course of Arnold Ebiketie is going to solve all our edge rush issues, which were real going back to the season. This is not a sudden need that everyone discovered.
It would also be good to do a second or a third round pick on an edge rusher too.
Yes, yeah, which I think they'll do regardless coming up. But it's just a matter of, is it, like you're saying, day 1, day 2? Or is this day 3 because they loaded up in free agency with youngish guys? All right, let's finish out the mid-level veterans. I have one more who's an offensive player. Is your guy an offense or defense?
Mine is a defensive player.
Okay. Talk to me.
Alohi Gilman.
Interesting.
Listed at 2 years, $6.75 million average value.
So you're saving money here too, because this
really helped when he got traded to Baltimore in a trade that really helped both teams. Where Odafe really blossomed with the Chargers as an edge rusher, while Gilman allowed Hamilton to move into the nickel role. While Gilman played the deep safety role, I think he played it well for the Ravens. I think he can fill it here. If Hawkins leaves, he teams with Woodson. Like I said, the supply of safeties this year it's a lot of guys. There's a lot of safeties out there. So it's if you don't like this angle, you can go this way. If you don't like that way, you can go Nick Cross and Nick Scott and Jaquan Brisker and this guy and that guy, and there's just a lot of safeties available. But I like Alohi Gilman, and that's the guy I picked.
I like Gilman too. The Crafts, by the way, love your list because they're saving a lot of money even within these parameters of like the low level guys under 2 million a piece.
Wait till we get to my big ticket item.
He's under seven. Okay. I like it. Yeah, look, the point about the safeties is one that I think if you're casually following free agency, you might miss just because no one's being like, hey, have you seen Brian Cook? And you look him up and you're like, the guy with 0 picks from the Chiefs? Cool. And then, of course, the underlying stuff is better and he's a good tackler and he's got good range. Or you go to a guy like Kobe Bryant, who in Seattle is maybe like the 7th or 8th best player in that defense, which is not a knock on him. It's more to say he's surrounded by such a rich talent pool that he gets slips underneath the surface a little bit. But if you're the Patriots, you're going, that's fine. We find good value in players like this and specifically at this range. So if Jaylon Hawkins wants to come back, they've got more leverage to say, like, you got to come at our number. They have expressed they want him back. I would expect that to happen for now. I'm not like super confident in this, but just kind of reading everything. Then again, whether it's Cook, Kobe Bryant, your guy Gilman, basically anyone but Jaquan Brisker, I could see them bringing in and definitely addressing because they don't want to, I think, go into next season with like Craig Woodson, Del Pettis, then Brendan Schooler's our third guy.
No, yeah, we're not playing Brendan Schooler on defense. That's not happening.
I do miss him though as the QB spy. Remember last year that was
for
the
a
thing
couple of snaps, but
yeah, good blitzer, but just super specific time package there. Okay, I mentioned my guy is on offense, and I will reveal him after this break. Okay, so I know we're all grieving. For you, because Patriots season is over, or maybe that they lost the Super Bowl. For me, it's that I'm not going to have football until September. And I do like free agency in the draft just like everybody else, but I will tell you there's nothing like the rush of Sundays. And for folks who have been listening to this podcast, you know there's nothing like the rush of Sundays, along with a winning Prizepicks lineup, because all season we handed out winning picks at Prizepicks. And if you're a little late to the game, that's okay, because Prizepicks still rolls on as the number one place to win money while you watch sports well beyond football, basketball, hockey, baseball around the corner. Go Sox. If you would like to join in now, it is still the perfect time, because if you use our promo code CLNS, you will get $50, 50 in lineups once you play your first $5 lineup at Prizepicks. How does that work? Glad you asked. At Prizepicks, this is as simple as it gets anywhere. You look at their board of players when you download the Prizepicks app, and they could have points, they could have rebounds, they could have assists, they could have runs, they could have runs allowed, hits. I don't care. You get to make the picks of the player and the stat, and then all you go is more than or less than with that night or day's game. You put it in your lineup, the player, the stat, more than, less than. You pick another player, more than, less than, and sometimes they give you a discount. Very like predictable, easy things, more or less than, I don't know, a half a passing yard, which we did a lot of this season. Anyway, you lock in between 2 to 6 players on Prizepicks, boom. There's a lineup. You put down $5. They give you 50 in lineups to play with. And look, let's say you're more adventurous than me. You like to do a lineup of 4 players. In your first 3 hit, and you're watching number 4 late at night, maybe with a newborn, just like me going, please, please, please hit. You don't have to wait. You don't have to say please. You have early payouts now at Prizepicks that let you withdraw and take your money at the best place to win money while you watch sports. So why wait? Download the Prizepicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, it's good to be right. Offensive player. This is a tight end. This is a tight end whose number came in a little higher than I expected, just based on his production. Cade Otton from the Bucs. He is 26.
I almost went with Cade Otton on my list. Good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Look, I'm feeling better and better about my list the deeper we go. This is great. He's super durable. Almost 4,000 snaps over the first 4 years of his career. And he's 6'5", 247, a little bit lighter. But I'm going to go back to that stat that I could not explain to Kendrick Bourne, but I think is illustrative of good guys who do more with less, given their position on the field and where defenders are and how you break tackles. Per Next Gen Stats, he picked up 0.7 yards extra over expectation per catch, sandwiched in this list of tight ends who do best with those catches in that location between Trey McBride and Colston Loveland. So I love this for him. And this isn't to say he will suddenly break out, even for 800 yards coming to New England. But given his age again at 26, I know he's durable. I can play him in line. I know he's going to play his tail off. And he's a great route runner.
Strong pass blocker also.
Yes. This is someone who just fills the need in the short term of someone to play behind Hunter Henry and give you an upgrade. And then if Hunter Henry walks after next offseason, you feel comfortable enough with him as a tight end who's very strong. And I'll give you this one too. He had his season high 9 catches against the Patriots. So just like Ebiketie, and like this isn't a great thing for evaluators to go with what they saw that was just in front of their eyes. I don't know what you would call this bias, but it's very real. And I think even for the Patriots who are becoming more analytical and taking a holistic look at all these different players, there's something just to be said for he gave us problems and we couldn't figure it out. And I think Cade Otton is one that you look and go, 10 might be a little rich, but this is going to age well for all those reasons.
You could absolutely afford Otton and Ebiketie and Gilman. They could totally fit. You could fit those three guys into your two mid-level veteran space.
You know what people listening to this are saying? At least 12%. Look at Callahan. Cade Otton. Have you heard of Dallas Goedert? What would you say to those people?
Dallas Goedert is older. That's the problem. Is you wanted a guy who's 26.
I did, and that's why I signed him. We're very happy together, Cade Otton and I.
Yeah, Goddard is older, and I don't want to get on the Kyle Pitts roller coaster.
No, God, no.
No. Of hoping that he's for real last year, and I like Otton. That's a good one.
Yeah, and look, if they sign Dallas Goedert, that's clearly a win now move. I push the Patriots to be win now, not all in on 2026. There's some mixed stuff. Matthew Berry in his what I heard gossip column that I'm still very jealous of, said like, oh, don't take this to the bank, but I heard he's out of Philly. And then you hear some people from Philly who are like, he'll be back. I don't know what's what, but if it's $12 million, which is what they project, I kind of like that pairing because it's a clear upgrade over Austin Hooper at this point of his career. And it's kind to say it's just a jag, which for people listening to this going, what? Just a guy is scouting parlance for just like replacement level, nothing. And he had under 300 yards last year. I'm not keen on bringing Austin Hooper back, but Cade Otton, sign me up. Okay. You're breaking the bank here, yes?
Yeah, I'm going big ticket with my big ticket item.
Okay, I think I know who he is then. But go ahead.
Wide receiver Alec Pierce.
All right.
Of the Indianapolis Colts. Led the league in yards per reception. Fourth in my DYAR, defense adjusted yards above replacement stats among wide receivers. A great deep threat for a great deep throwing quarterback. Could easily become your number one receiver if the personality conflicts with Diggs require Diggs to leave. Now you've got Alec Pierce as your one with Hollins and Booty as sort of 2A and 2B. I think that's a great trio with Pop Douglas then in the slot. Pierce is a fantastic talent. He's supposed to command $24 million a year. So I went big ticket with my big ticket item, but he is really that good.
So I like the fit with the quarterback. I mean, as much as like any free agent pairing we've had hit the market, forget Drake May, you go to Mac Jones and Tom Brady before then to come in and you just know like Drake's going to throw X amount of 40-yard completions to this guy and you could take it to the bank starting in the preseason. The thing for me is then if Diggs does walk, like you mentioned Pop Douglas in the slot, they only trusted him to play about 24% of the snaps. And part of that was Diggs being in front of him. And now at this point of his career.
Yeah, I'm thinking more Hollins as your possession guy.
And so then the Hollins stuff gets into, and look, this is not stuff for a free agency podcast, which is pie in the sky, fun, wish list stuff. But these are the things they're talking about. So I want to bring it up now. Hollins helped them effectively operate like a 12 personnel offense when they were really, in 11 because of how he would come insert as a blocker on duo or kick in or play in line. So they value him more than I think you would on the outside looking at those stats, and not you specifically, but just folks listening. So then you go, we've got three big bodies who do suit Drake May, particularly his downfield threats. And again, I love the Pierce fit. I just wonder what their math would be on, okay, how else do we have to move the pieces around? But that number 24 that you mentioned, it sounds like he might hit the market today based on them putting the transition tag on Daniel Jones. I think is perfectly palatable, even for a team that's going like, do we really want to do this? Yes, you should because of the fit. It's just a matter of, okay, what are your next moves? Because you have to make them, I think, based on positional fit and fit within the offense.
Yeah, I think he's a great receiver for this quarterback and would be a great addition. You don't know then, is it Booty going deep or is it Pierce going deep? They can both do mid-range and deep stuff. He's just really good. He's just been really good the last 2 years.
Yeah, I like Pierce. He was not my pick. I doubled down on the edges, and my big ticket item only listed for 15 which is why I actually bumped it. And I texted you last night. I was like, oh, can we take this from 16, the original number for big ticket items and higher, down to 15? Because I just felt like taking Jalen Phillips and an Alec Pierce, or Jalen Phillips and an Elijah Vera-Tucker, who I want to talk with you in a second.
Jalen Phillips is who I gave to the Patriots in my ESPN article about one free agent for each team.
All right. Well, let me make the case in your behalf. So Jalen Phillips is someone I talked about a lot at the trade deadline. Patriots made a call. My understanding is that call was not very long. And part of that, Dolphins, divisional stuff, put that aside. Eagles get him for a third-round pick. In Philadelphia, he finishes the season, including his time in Miami, with an 18.8% win rate when pass rushing as an edge defender. That was top 10 in the league, 8th to be exact. Here were the only players ahead of Jalen Phillips who won their pass rushes more off the edge. Myles Garrett, Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, Daniil Hunter, and Josh Hines-Allen. That's it. If that's a company he's going to be keeping, and I understand it was only 5 sacks, but when he's healthy at 6'5", 266, prototypical fit, size, strength, speed, all this different stuff, sign me up.
And he made a big difference. When you watch the Eagles in the first couple games after the trade,
huge.
Yeah, it wasn't sacks. He didn't get to the quarterback, but he just made a big difference in the amount of pressure that they brought. Absolutely.
And I'm not dismissing the injury piece of this because that is what's going to depress his market. I just look at this and go, okay, so he had an ACL and he had an Achilles. This is not, and those are serious. Those are not like recurring injuries to me. You know, like there's a freak element there, and he got popped. I don't remember who the player was, but took out his ACL. That's just going to happen. You play football long enough. And before then, his first 2.5 seasons, he's averaging more than a sack every 2 games. So you had that player at the start of his career. You get this wiser, tougher, older player now who, again, is going to hold up and run defense. It's just a matter of he's younger than Trey Hendrickson. He's cheaper than a Trey Hendrickson. I feel comfortable doubling up with him and Ebiketie. And so that's a guy who I just think all around is such a fit. I get the injury concerns, but it's just someone I want to bet on, especially when a smart team like the Eagles did just that, and it paid off in a way that he looked like a top 10 edge rusher last season.
Yes. This is, I mean, like I said, in my ESPN piece, I said, what do the Patriots need? Who fits it? This is the best fit I could think of. Obviously, the Dolphins, I'd rather take a third from an NFC team than a third from a team in my division for him. But he would be absolutely fantastic to bring here. No question about it. This is one they should definitely go after. You cannot afford both him and Pierce. It would have to be one or the other. But it's one you absolutely want to go after.
Yeah. And I mean, like, technically they could, but I think understanding.
But you would rather have 6 guys that are cheap than have 2 big ticket guys and then fill your roster with undrafted free agents.
Yeah. And look, I think this is how they're going to approach it. So this is instructive, not only just for expectations, but also like, okay, within this framework, this is how you want to operate. There's no reason you couldn't get all 5 of your guys and then all 5 of mine if this is how they want to move throughout the next week. The one player who I already mentioned who was in consideration here, which I don't love paying guards, and historically that's always kind of the back of my brain. The market really, though, has taken off. And you talk about guys that you buy low on because of injury, and he's had more than Jalen Phillips had, which is to say a lot. Elijah Vera-Tucker, they project over the cap for $17.5 million. And I'm just going, I think he would help me feel better if I'm a Patriots fan or front office guy or coach, knowing if he's there, as he was in 2024 the whole season, was a top 10 guard per Pro Football Focus grades. Pressure rate allowed of 2.8%. Will Campbell on my left, we can help there. And in the middle, Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury, you battle it out. I feel really good about my offensive line if he's healthy. And it stops the interior pressure, lets Drake May escape, all these different things. He's only 26. But him being more expensive than Jalen Phillips and given the positional value, Aaron, I just couldn't square that in my head and ended up going, let me get the edge guy and just do whatever I can. If Joel Bitonio is a beer guy.
I like your idea of Bitonio going ring hunting more than more than the Vera-Tucker idea.
And whatever it takes. Like if he wants his own, JB, whatever his number is, instead of TB12 at Patriot Place to get him in here and funnel him a little extra money, or if he likes beer, or whatever you can do to sweeten the actual contract, do it to get him here as opposed to giving Elijah Vera-Tucker, all that money. I'd rather give that to Jalen Phillips.
Yes, or Pierce. Yeah, one of those. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Were there any guys that you left on the cutting room floor that just missed it outside looking in that almost made it for your 5 here?
No, but the guy that I wish I'd said something about that you brought up was re-signing Tonga is important.
Yeah, Tonga.
I think re-signing Tonga is important, especially with this being a bad year for defensive tackles in free agency and an even worse year for defensive tackles in the draft. I think re-signing him is important.
Yeah. There were a couple guys, and we touched on the safety, so I can skip over those. Like Brian Cook, I took a long, hard look at, and Kobe Bryant's a nice backup. Cam Curl, you could talk yourself into. Is a position that is not getting as much attention, but the Patriots considered, I can tell you, in the second round, Carson, help me pronounce his last name with the Browns. The rookie who was just outstanding. He won. Did he win defensive rookie? Schlesinger. Thank you.
Yes.
He was a consideration for them at 38 in the second round. So like this is just to say they're happy with Spillane and Christian Ellis, who was much better in the second half of the season than he was in the first. And then it's like Jack Gibbons is hanging around and Jelani Tavai and like, could we do better? Yes, I think they could. They might wait until the draft to do that. But Leo Chenal is 25, and he's projected to get $6 million per year. He's a bigger body. He's athletic. And in this fantasy scenario, Aaron, as I just continue to try to speak this into existence, if I sign Leo Chenal, maybe I could flip Christian Ellis to Vegas and get me some Max Crosby and import him into New England and get a little crazy. So anyway, that was one name that I both seriously and unseriously considered here at the end.
Another safety I'll mention is Ardarius Washington. Mm-hmm. He was the guy who was going to be Alohi Gilman. And then he was injured and missed almost the entire year. But he had a good time with Baltimore before that. Another good deep safety who's going to be available and not cost that much money because he's coming off an injury.
Cool. I like it. All right. I will, of course, have all my stuff at the Herald next week. And then I will be sitting at home like a loser with plenty of unresponded to texts and calls. Maybe 5%, I think, get back to you around free agency week about what you're hearing and this and that. And those are worth a lot because those are scoops or confirmations. What can we expect from you next week when free agency unfolds? We got grades coming. What's going to be at FTN?
Adjusted games lost. My injury numbers are coming next week.
Oh, good.
We'll find out, were the Patriots the healthiest team in the league?
They're up there.
I can tell you now, the least healthy team in the league by far was the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh. Were the Niners 31? Or just like,
did
they
like
talk about it more?
29 or something.
20? Okay. I was like, for the amount of media attention given to whatever that facility is next door.
Yes.
It's like,
no, the Cardinals had, especially a defensive back, they started by losing Sean Murphy-Bunting in an offseason softball game. God. And then they just lost defensive back after defensive back after defensive back. Guys went out for 5-6 weeks at a time. Yeah, they were hugely injured last year. And they're going to completely blow up their team based on a year when they had the most injuries and the hardest schedule.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you have that coming next week. I have one more episode this week with Dan Pizzuta, your pal and mine. We're going to do predictions. So we throw out wish lists, we throw out nuggets, we throw out whispers. I'm going to give you my official Patriots free agent predictions that will come late Friday. In the meantime, go follow Aaron. I'm sure we would love to have you back. And I don't know. I'm going to be keeping my wish list at least somewhere to the side so that we can figure out if you.
Yeah, we'll see how many of these guys they actually hit on.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thank you, my friend.
All right.